I'm Katie from the Faulkner County Library, and I am here with this month's Taste Test Kitchen at Home. This month is a cookie extravaganza. We're going to celebrate all things cookie. We are going to be making Italian Christmas cookies from the Pioneer Woman this month, but I also want you to take it as an opportunity to explore all of the different kinds of cookies out there and see what kinds of cookies you like to make. So there are cookies that can be as simple as you would like. There's some you can even buy the dough already in the shapes. All you have to do is take it out, put it in the oven. There are slice and bake cookies. And then there are cookie recipes that you can make for every single thing from scratch. So I think that this recipe we're going to make today is a nice beginning cookie recipe. We're going to learn how to make cookie dough and kind of what goes into making cookies. And it'll give you a base for exploring other cookie options. So before we get started, let's talk about what you're going to need. So the first thing is sugar. You're going to want sugar. You are going to want a stick of butter, and this needs to be softened. So make sure you take it out of the refrigerator a little bit before you're planning on using it. You're going to want some almond extract and vanilla extract for flavoring. Baking powder is going to help us make sure our cookies rise. We're going to want milk for the glaze. All-purpose flour for the dough. Powdered sugar for the glaze. And then 3 eggs. And to top off our Italian Christmas cookies, we're going to be decorating them with sprinkles. I've chosen some festive sprinkles, but you can decorate these however you would like. In addition to your ingredients, you're also going to need a couple of materials. You're going to want an oven to cook your cookies, to bake the cookies. You need a mixing bowl, and you're going to want... It's going to make your life much easier if you have some kind of mixer. So I am going to be using a handheld mixer with my mixing bowl today. If you happen to have a stand mixer like a KitchenAid mixer, that is going to be something that you are going to want to use this week. We are ready to begin making the cookie dough. So the first thing we're going to do is, if you are using a mixer, either a stand mixer or a hand mixer, we are going to add 2/3 cup of sugar, the butter stick, the vanilla, and the almond, and mix it all together. So I'm going to start with the sugar. So we want 2/3 cup. We want the entire stick of butter, and sometimes it helps if you cut your butter into smaller pieces. Sometimes it doesn't matter. I'm just going to put the entire stick in the bowl and work with it that way. We are also going to add the vanilla and the almond extract at this point, and we want 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And we want 3/4 teaspoon of the almond extract. When you put the almond extract in, what does it smell like to you? Sometimes I don't think of almond having a scent, but this to me has a very distinct cherry smell. Okay, so we have the almond extract, the vanilla extract, the butter, and the sugar. We are going to take our mixer now, and we are going to mix until it says until smooth and fluffy. Once you have the butter, sugar, and the flavors mixed well, you're going to do what is called scraping down the sides. So whether you're using a stand mixer or what, you're just gonna take a spatula or something and scrape on the sides to make sure that all of the ingredients are in the middle of the bowl. And then we're just gonna do one last mix to make sure we get everything. And we are now ready to move on to adding the rest of our ingredients. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is add 3 eggs and mix them in. You might need a little bit of assistance with cracking open the egg, and it's sometimes easy to do it in a separate bowl and then mix from there instead of cracking the egg directly into your dough. So we're gonna add the eggs into our mix. And we are going to carefully beat that now. Now, I will say one other thing is that when you are using a mixer, you're gonna wanna start it off slow and then move up in speed. So don't just automatically like start full speed, because then you might have cookie dough all over your kitchen and that would not be fun. Again, during your process, you're gonna wanna pause your mixing, bring your spatula back in and scrape down the sides so that we make sure we get all of the ingredients. Next, we are going to add the flour, the baking powder, and the salt. And if you are using a stand mixer, you can put the mixer on low and it can be running while you are adding these ingredients. I have paused my mixer for now because I don't want to add it one-handed. And also remember, when you're adding flour, you want it to be pretty level. So we need 2 teaspoons of baking powder. If you are using baking powder, one thing that is important to remember about it is you do want to make sure your baking powder is not expired or your cookie dough will not rise very much. So we are now going to mix all of our dry ingredients. And this is going to be especially important that you start out on the lower setting when you had that flour on the top. And we are now going to move on to the next step of our cookie dough process, and that is collecting it from our bowl and chilling the dough. So we are gonna chill this for, the recipe calls for 2 to 4 hours. So I'm gonna wrap it up in a baggie or in plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator and then check back in a little while. After your dough has chilled in the fridge for anywhere from 1 to 4 hours, you are gonna go ahead, we're gonna pull it back out of the fridge, and we are now ready to go ahead and start the baking process. So I am taking my dough out of the bag that I put it in earlier and have a little bit of parchment for my workstation. If you have a cutting board or a plastic mat or anything, that would be perfect to work on. So before you get started with this part, go ahead and start your oven preheating so that when you are ready to use it, it will be ready. And then once you have preheated the oven to 350 degrees, we are going to shape the dough into 1-inch balls. And the recipe says we should get about 36 of them. And our recipe also says that we want to leave about 1 inch between each cookie dough ball so that we can have room for spreading out while it cooks. Because when you cook cookie dough, it's really cool. It usually expands. The recipe also says, so there are 2 options for how you can form these cookies. The first is what we're doing. We're just rolling it into a ball. There is another option where you can take the same amount of dough, roll it into kind of a log shape. So kind of like a snake, just between your hands. And then you can kind of like twist it into a mound. if you want. So that is another option. And if some of your cookie dough balls are bigger than an inch, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so my tray is full of Italian Christmas cookie dough. I'm so excited to see how these turn out. My oven has been preheating for a little over 15 minutes now, so I think it's ready to go, even though we haven't yet quite heard the ding. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the oven to cook while I work on rolling out the rest. Okay, so our cookies have baked for 11 minutes. The oven has dinged, so we are going to check them. And I'm gonna check them a little differently this time than I usually do. So typically I would look at the top and see if the top looks set and browned. This time I'm looking more at the bottom. It's not quite browned, but so our recipe says that the bottoms should be lightly browned. I'm gonna let these go for just a tiny bit longer in the oven. I don't think they're quite where I want them to be. Okay, so I think it's time to go ahead and recheck our cookies. So we're gonna pull them back out. This is what we're working with. We're gonna look and see if the bottoms have browned anymore. I think they're pretty set. And we are good to go. So we are gonna set these aside and let them cool while we work on the glaze that will go on top of them. So we're gonna take a medium bowl and we're gonna whisk together powdered sugar, milk, and vanilla. 2 cups of powdered sugar, 3 tablespoons of milk, half a teaspoon of our vanilla. I'm gonna use 2 1/4 teaspoons. And we are gonna stir that up. So if you watched the toaster tart recipe, we're gonna do the glaze very similarly to when we did the glaze for that. So we just mix it. And now is a good time also to start thinking about how you want to decorate your cookies, or if you want to decorate your cookies. I am going to be using these sprinkles. So if you have some like that, that would be perfect to use. So this says to dip the top of each cookie in the glaze and then sprinkle. So I'm gonna go ahead and dip the cookie in the glaze, let it drip, and then put it on. I'm gonna do 1 row at a time. Now I'm just gonna do a little bit of sprinkling so we have some decorations. And did you know that we are using red, green, and white sprinkles, which are holiday colors, and it's also the color of the flag of Italy, which is a nice coincidence since we are making Italian Christmas cookies. So we have our cookies decorated. They are glazed and they have the sprinkles on them. And we're now gonna go ahead and let that glaze set. Thank you so much for joining me on this month's Taste Test Kitchen at Home with the Faulkner County Library. We have made Italian Christmas cookies. Here is the final product of what mine looked like. Yours might look similar to that or different. And I hope that this month's cookie extravaganza has inspired you to explore some different cookies and what kind of cookies you like. And this recipe has given you something new to try and test out your skills in the kitchen. Follow the Faulkner County Library Youth Services Facebook page and our YouTube page at Faulkner County Library for more programming information.